Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. As the longest ever season of Formula 1 is now halfway through, possibly. I mean, Australia cancelled and they haven't filled that hole yet, but Ross Brawn seems eager to fill holes in the schedule with just about anything he can find. I'm looking forward to the first ever Costa Rican Grand Prix. It makes about as much sense as anything else. But as we are halfway through, let's take a look at how 2021 has been to every driver on the Formula 1 grid, giving them a rating out of 10, not just on position and points scored, but generally on how they are performing against expectations. Are they doing better than expected or are they doing worse? It's as arbitrary as Formula 1's penalty system, and again, it makes about as much sense, but I'm going to do it anyway. Remember to subscribe, and let's begin.
Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
Nikita Mazepin, 1 out of 10. I don't want to be mean to the Russian. Haas haven't exactly given him anything to perform spectacularly with, but it has been pretty bad. Almost always qualifying last, finishing last. He's spun at the first corner on his debut. He's being trounced by teammate Mick Schumacher. It could only be more embarrassing if he impregnated Gene Haas's dog. Mick Schumacher, 3 out of 10. It's difficult to know what to expect from someone when you expect so little from the team. I wasn't expecting Michael Schumacher levels of domination, but Mick hasn't really been in a position to show anything. There was a Q2 appearance that he didn't appear in because he crashed. Very little else, but what did you expect? Antonio Giovinazzi, 5 out of 10. Alfa Romeo aren't on the pace right now, and that is a shame because Antonio Giovinazzi has been better than previous years. But having said that, he is still only matching Kimi Räikkönen for pace, and given Kimi is now older than time, Antonio should be beating him. He doesn't crash as often anymore, but he does make the odd mistake. He could be better. Kimi Räikkönen, 4 out of 10. Again, as Alfa Romeo aren't on form, I wasn't expecting race wins for Räikkönen, but he doesn't seem to have much fight left in him anymore. Plus some strange moments like crashing into Sebastian Vettel at the Austrian Grand Prix, and only 2 points on the board. I think Kimi Räikkönen has definitely had his day and it's time to make way for younger talent. Nicholas Latifi, 7 out of 10. Did anyone expect Latifi to be ahead of Russell? Anyone? The Canadian may have been lucky in Hungary, but he still managed to finish ahead of Russell and get his first points in Formula 1. Other than that, it has been very much as expected with the Williams still languishing at the back, but he consistently finishes races. The only downside is constantly qualifying and usually finishing behind George Russell, except when it matters. George Russell, 9 out of 10. The man of the moment, the man who seems destined for a Mercedes drive, the man who wishes Bottas would just take a hint and leave. George Russell has been in awesome form, qualifying for Q2 more often than not and even getting into Q3 at Silverstone, until the sprint race ruined our fun. Scored his first Williams points in Hungary and must be in a good place right now, even looked like scoring points on natural pace for Williams. In a Mercedes, he is going to be hard to beat. Lance Stroll, 4 out of 10. I thought we could stop the Lance Stroll is only in Formula 1 because of his daddy's money thing, but he has taken a massive step backwards from the first half of last year. But he was flying high last year, and so far in 2021, he has scored points more often than he hasn't. The crash in Hungary was a bad one though. Maybe Stroll has a future in the WRC. As for 2021, if he can keep scoring points, he'll be pushing for a top 10 finish, but he needs to close the gap to teammate Vettel. Sebastian Vettel, 7 out of 10. I think it says a lot that Vettel has scored nearly as many points in 2021 as he did in 2020. He hasn't spun as much either. He's spun, but not as much. It's been a good year in theory, even though he has only had a couple of points finishes, but some very good drives have helped him capitalise on things that happen, and second in Baku and second in Hungary before being disqualified are good results for Aston Martin. It's hard to know what Sergio Perez would have done in this car, and it doesn't seem to be where they were last year, but if Vettel carries on getting podiums, then he has excelled for Aston Martin. I didn't think the German was a good investment for the team, especially sacrificing Perez in the process, but he is doing a good job, so bless him for trying. Yuki Tsunoda, 6 out of 10. We've seen how bad a debut can be with Nikita Mazepin, and Tsunoda's debut season has not been the best ever so far. He could surprise us in the second half of the year, but right now he's exactly where he should be. He's a bit behind Gasly, but then Gasly does have 4 seasons worth of experience and a race win under his belt. Tsunoda hasn't made too many mistakes, only has one retirement from a mechanical issue, and has been picking up the odd points finish, helping AlphaTauri stay above Aston Martin and not too far behind Alpine. He had an amazing debut and he got his best result so far in Hungary. If he can increase the number of races he picks up points from, then this will be a decent first year for the young Japanese ace. But right now, it's just a bit average. Pierre Gasly, 8 out of 10. Has done a very good job picking up points, has scored another podium and has been quality in qualifying. Except hitting the high points of 2020, it doesn't get much better than this in an AlphaTauri. I don't expect much more than continuing what he's doing, but if he manages that, he will prove why he is the most underutilised talent on the grid. Esteban Ocon, 10 out of 10. What can you say other than Esteban Ocon has won a Grand Prix and it doesn't get any better than that for a midfield team? Yes, his season before Hungary was insanely average, and before that win he was on 14 points, which would only have been good enough for 14th in the championship behind Tsunoda and Stroll. But it doesn't matter because he has won a Grand Prix. If he hadn't have won, then this would be a 3 out of 10 season. It's been poor, but it will probably never get better than this for Esteban Ocon. Fernando Alonso, 6 out of 10. It's hard to know what to expect from Fernando Alonso. He is a double champion and definitely still has the ability, but he hasn't been a successful driver since he left Ferrari, and he has been away for a few years. I think he'll be happy with consistently scoring good points, but knowing Alonso, he wants more. I don't think Alpine can give him more, sadly, and it will definitely irk him that Ocon got a race win. I think the majority of people would be happy in his position though, and maintaining a top 10 finish to the end of the year will be good enough for the experienced Spaniard. Daniel Ricciardo, 3 out of 10. It has been consistent. Ricciardo has scored at all but 3 rounds and has finished every race, but he is so far behind Lando Norris it's insane. To be fair, none of us knew how good Lando was going to be in 2021, but Ricciardo is a top class standout talent and he's being left in the dust. In his defence, it's a new team, but to try and catch up, he's going to have to start challenging for podiums. Lando Norris, 10 out of 10. Probably the standout driver of the year, except maybe Max Verstappen. I doubt Lando or McLaren or Lando's mum saw the young Brit beating both a Mercedes and a Red Bull in the driver's standings at the halfway point of the season. He's only finished outside the top 5 twice, once in Spain and again in Hungary when he was punted out by a wayward Finn. Unless he wins a race, I don't think his season can get much better. Carlos Sainz Jr., 8 out of 10. This was a season of recovery for Ferrari and a massive gamble for Sainz to join at a time when Ferrari have been pretty awful. Whilst it hasn't been a campaign of outright results for Sainz, he has been ever consistent, has scored a couple of really good podiums in Monaco and Hungary. He also leads Charles Leclerc in the points, only just, but I want Sainz to take an outright win for Ferrari. But pushing for a top 6 championship finish is probably the aim for 2021. Charles Leclerc, 7 out of 10. He won't like being behind Carlos Sainz at the halfway stage, but Charles Leclerc has been so unlucky this year. He took pole position in Monaco but couldn't take the race because of a mechanical issue. Stroll ploughed into him at Hungary, but he had a fantastic second place at Silverstone and he has been driving well. At the very least, it's better than last year. Sergio Perez, 7 out of 10. I had high expectations for Perez and maybe it's been harder to adapt than he thought, but he is doing a better job than Alexander Albon did of being the second Red Bull driver. A win in Azerbaijan has helped, but I'm sure he would like to be ahead of Bottas and Norris. And hopefully more wins will come his way and maybe a push for third place in the championship. Max Verstappen, 10 out of 10. No one is driving better than Max Verstappen. The few bad races he has had have not been his fault. A tyre in Azerbaijan, a rampant Hamilton at Silverstone, and Bottas ruining multiple races in Hungary. Apart from that, it has been very good for Verstappen. He couldn't have done more. Hopefully these bad results don't lead to a drop in confidence, because if he can just keep his head down, he will be champion. Valtteri Bottas, 5 out of 10. It's not great when the most talked about thing all year is you being replaced. Motivation will be hard to come by for the rest of 2022. No wins, a couple of crashes, the one in Hungary being particularly embarrassing, but more importantly, he's falling back in the championship. He's not only falling behind Hamilton, but he can't keep up with Verstappen, and he is struggling with Norris and Perez around him. For a Mercedes not to be top 2 in the championship, even with a resurgent Red Bull, it's just not good enough, and with George Russell performing well in a lowly Williams, Bottas's days are numbered. Lewis Hamilton, 7 out of 10. It's not been easy and there have been mistakes, but once again Lewis Hamilton leads the championship. But it's not the absolute domination that we've seen for the last 7 years, and Red Bull clearly have him rattled. He's been overtaken by Verstappen more times than he would like to count so far in 2021, and it took taking Max out of the Silverstone Grand Prix for Hamilton to win there. Lewis will be there or thereabouts come year end, but we are witnessing a changing of the guard, and that is the most exciting thing to happen in Formula 1 in the last decade. So that is what I think of the drivers' performances in Formula 1 so far in 2021. Do you agree or do you disagree? Leave your comments down below. Keep it civil and show your workings, as teacher used to say. Make sure you leave a like and a share on the video. Remember to subscribe, really getting closer to 500 every day now, so we'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching and have a good one.